We have all experienced the strange, unsettling sensation of déjà vu. You walk into a room, hear a specific phrase, or look at a certain arrangement of objects, and a sudden wave of absolute certainty washes over you. You feel, down to your very bones, that you have lived this exact moment before. For most of us, it is a fleeting glitch in the matrix, a 2-second neurological hiccup that we brush off and forget. But what if the feeling didn't stop after 2 seconds? What if the glitch caught in a loop, and you realized you weren't just feeling a sense of familiarity, but actually replaying a fully recorded segment of your life? To understand how reality can break, we have to look at how the brain constructs time. Your perception of the present moment is not a live broadcast. It is a highly edited, slightly delayed reconstruction created by your temporal lobe. As sensory data pours into your eyes and ears, your brain routes it through a region called the Rhinal Cortex, which acts as a familiarity checker. If the data matches a stored memory, the Rhinal Cortex flags it as familiar. Déjà vu happens when this region misfires, accidentally slapping a familiar tag on a brand new experience. Your brain is essentially writing a memory and reading it at the exact same time, creating a terrifying paradox of perception. Kai was a 21-year-old architecture student who thought he understood the rigid mathematical rules of the physical world. He was a creature of habit, living a highly structured life dictated by class schedules, study groups, and a predictable daily routine. His descent into the impossible began on a completely unremarkable Tuesday morning in the middle of the fall semester. He was sitting in a crowded lecture hall, listening to his professor drone on about the structural integrity of suspension bridges. Suddenly, the air in the room felt heavy, the fluorescent lights seemed to hum at a different frequency, and a cold sweat broke out across the back of his neck. He knew, with absolute terrifying certainty, exactly what was going to happen next. He knew the girl in the front row was going to drop her metal water bottle, and he knew it would roll exactly 3 feet to the left. He knew the professor was going to clear his throat, adjust his glasses, and mispronounce the word tensile. A split second later, the metal bottle hit the floor with a loud clatter, rolling precisely 3 feet to the left. The professor cleared his throat, pushed his glasses up his nose, and stumbled over the word tensile, just as Kai had anticipated. It wasn't a vague feeling of familiarity, it was a high-definition, frame-by-frame replay of a script he had already memorized. The episode lasted for 14 agonizing seconds before the timeline snapped back into place, leaving Kai gasping for air in his seat. He tried to rationalize it as a severe panic attack or a symptom of extreme sleep deprivation brought on by midterms. But the next day, the stutter in time happened again, and this time the loop was significantly longer. The bell above the campus coffee shop door chimed exactly 3 times as Kai walked in. A barista with a silver nose ring dropped a ceramic mug, the sharp crack echoing over the low hum of the espresso machine. Before the shards even settled, a girl in a yellow raincoat bumped into his left shoulder, muttering a quick apology without looking up. Kai ordered a black coffee, handed over a crumpled $5 bill, and noticed the date on the receipt, October 14th. It was a perfectly ordinary sequence of events, a mundane choreography of college life that meant absolutely nothing. But as he took his coffee and sat down, he realized he had just lived through a full 2-minute sequence that he already knew by heart. He knew the barista would drop the mug, he knew the girl in the raincoat would bump his shoulder, and he knew the exact serial number on the $5 bill he handed over. He wasn't predicting the future, he was remembering it. Terrified that he was losing his mind, Kai pulled out his smartphone, opened the voice memo app, and decided to run a desperate experiment. The next time the heavy, sinking feeling of déjà vu washed over him, he hit record and started speaking. He was going to document the glitch, completely unaware that he was about to capture undeniable proof that his reality was a recording. The voice memos on Kai's phone quickly became a terrifying catalogue of impossible foresight. Whenever the heavy, static-like sensation of an impending loop washed over him, he would hit record and rapidly narrate the next few minutes of his life. A red Honda Civic is going to run the stop sign, swerve to avoid a stray dog, and crash into the fire hydrant, he whispered into his phone while standing on a street corner. 10 seconds later, the screech of tires and the crunch of metal played out exactly as he had dictated, down to the specific breed of the dog. He wasn't guessing probabilities or reading subtle environmental cues. He was reading from a script that had already been written. He was trapped in a reality that felt like a movie he had watched 100 times before. And he was the only one who knew the ending. Desperate for validation, Kai decided to show his roommate Marcus the undeniable proof of his fractured timeline. They were sitting in their dorm room playing a video game when the familiar, sickening drop in Kai's stomach signaled the start of a new loop. He grabbed his phone, hit record, and placed it face up on the coffee table between them. In exactly 12 seconds, your mom is going to call, you're going to spill your soda on the rug, and the power in the building is going to flicker twice, Kai said, his voice trembling. Marcus laughed, assuming it was a bizarre prank, right up until his phone began to vibrate with an incoming call from his mother. Startled, Marcus knocked his soda can off the table, and as the dark liquid soaked into the carpet, the overhead lights flickered twice and died. Marcus stared at Kai in the sudden darkness, the laughter dying in his throat as the reality of the situation set in. Kai played the voice memo back, the recorded audio echoing perfectly in the silent room, proving that he had known the exact sequence of chaotic, random events before they occurred. But the validation didn't bring Kai any comfort. It only deepened his profound sense of isolation and terror. If he could predict the future with 100% accuracy, it meant that free will was an illusion, and the future was already set in stone. Or even more terrifyingly, it meant that he wasn't actually in the present moment at all. He was a passenger in his own body, forced to watch a pre-recorded playback of his life without the ability to change the channel. The loops began to stretch, expanding from fleeting seconds to agonizing minutes, and eventually to entire hours. Kai would wake up in the morning, feel the static in his brain, and realize he already knew every single conversation, mistake, and interaction he was going to have that day. He tried to break the script, deliberately choosing to skip class, walk a different route, or say something completely out of character. But every time he tried to deviate, a strange, overwhelming cognitive dissonance would force him back onto the predetermined path. It was as if the universe itself was correcting a rendering error, physically compelling his body to perform the actions he had already remembered doing. He wasn't a prophet. He was a prisoner of his own timeline. Unable to function in a world where every surprise had been deleted, Kai finally sought help at the university's neurology department. He sat in a sterile, brightly lit examination room, desperately trying to explain to a skeptical doctor that he was living his life on a delay. He played the voice memos, detailed the exact sequence of events that led him to the clinic, and begged for an MRI, a CT scan, anything that could explain the glitch. The neurologist, a pragmatic woman named Dr. Aris, listened patiently, her initial skepticism slowly giving way to genuine clinical concern. She recognized the symptoms not as a psychiatric delusion, but as a rare, highly specific neurological phenomenon. She ordered an immediate high-resolution functional brain scan, suspecting that Kai's temporal lobe was hiding a terrifying secret. As Kai lay inside the massive humming tube of the fMRI machine, he felt the static wash over him again, signaling the start of another loop. He knew exactly what Dr. Aris was going to say when she pulled him out of the machine, and he knew exactly what the scans were going to show. He closed his eyes, surrendering to the playback, waiting for the doctor to deliver the diagnosis he had already heard a dozen times in his mind. The machine whirred and clicked, mapping the electrical storms raging inside his skull, capturing the exact moment his brain confused the present with the past. When the scan was complete, Dr. Aris pulled him out, her face pale, holding a tablet that displayed a terrifying, undeniable truth. Dr. Aris clipped the fMRI scans to the light board, the glowing images revealing a chaotic storm of electrical activity deep within Kai's brain. She pointed to a specific, brightly lit cluster of neurons in the medial temporal lobe, the area responsible for processing sensory input and encoding long-term memories. "You aren't predicting the future, Kai," she said gently, her voice carrying the weight of a devastating diagnosis. "You are suffering from a severe, highly localized form of temporal lobe epilepsy, specifically affecting your hippocampus and rhinal cortex." She explained that his brain was experiencing constant rolling micro-seizures, electrical misfires that were completely scrambling his perception of time. Instead of processing the present moment as new information, his brain was instantly routing it through his memory centers, tagging it as something that had already happened. To help him understand the severity of the glitch, Dr. Aris told him about the groundbreaking work of a neurosurgeon named Wilder Penfield in the 1950s. Penfield was operating on conscious epilepsy patients using a small electrical probe to stimulate different areas of their exposed brains to find the source of their seizures. When he touched the probe to the temporal lobe, his patients didn't just remember their past, they vividly re-experienced it in real time. They heard long-forgotten songs playing clearly in the operating room, smelled the perfume of a childhood friend, and felt the exact emotional weight of a memory as if it were happening right then. Penfield proved that the brain records every single sensory detail of our lives like a massive high-definition hard drive. Kai's epilepsy was acting like Penfield's electrical probe, randomly hitting play on the hard drive and forcing his consciousness to watch the recording. The voice memos, the accurate predictions, the feeling of being trapped in a script. It was all a terrifying illusion created by a broken filing system. When Kai thought he was predicting a car crash, his brain was actually processing the sensory data of the crash in real time, but instantly filing it as a past memory before his conscious mind could register it. By the time his consciousness caught up a fraction of a second later, the event felt like a memory he was recalling, rather than an event he was currently witnessing. He wasn't a time traveler. He was a man whose brain was constantly lying to him about when now actually was. The diagnosis offered a scientific explanation, but it didn't offer a cure, and it opened the door to a much darker, existential terror. If his brain could perfectly simulate the present moment using stored memories, how could he ever trust his own perception of reality again? Dr. Aris prescribed a heavy regimen of anticonvulsant medications, hoping to suppress the electrical storms and force his temporal lobe back into a linear timeline. But as Kai left the hospital, the heavy static-like sensation washed over him again, thicker and more suffocating than ever before. He realized with a cold, sinking dread that the medication wasn't working, or perhaps he hadn't actually taken it yet. The lines between the present moment, the memory of the present moment, and the memory of the memory were beginning to blur into an indistinguishable grey fog. The bell above the campus coffee shop door chimed exactly 3 times as Kai walked in. A barista with a silver nose ring dropped a ceramic mug, the sharp crack echoing over the low hum of the espresso machine. Before the shards even settled, a girl in a yellow raincoat bumped into his left shoulder, muttering a quick apology without looking up. Kai ordered a black coffee, handed over a crumpled $5 bill, and noticed the date on the receipt. October 14th. It was a perfectly ordinary sequence of events, a mundane choreography of college life that meant absolutely nothing. Kai froze, the crumpled receipt trembling in his hand as the horrifying reality of the loop finally crushed him. He had already lived this exact moment, in this exact coffee shop, weeks ago, before the diagnosis, before the hospital, before the medication. He wasn't experiencing a micro-seizure that made the present feel like the past. He was experiencing a massive, catastrophic seizure that was forcing him to relive a memory from months ago. The neurologist, the fMRI scans, the explanation of Wilder Penfield. None of it was happening right now. He was trapped deep inside his own temporal lobe, playing back a recorded segment of his life while his physical body lay somewhere else, completely disconnected from reality. The coffee shop around him continued its perfectly choreographed routine, a flawless, high-definition playback of a Tuesday morning that had already died. Kai stared at the girl in the yellow raincoat as she walked out the door, knowing exactly how many steps she would take before she opened her umbrella. He tried to scream, to break the script, to force the memory to derail, but his vocal cords refused to obey his conscious command. His body was running on autopilot, executing the exact physical movements he had made on October 14th, while his trapped consciousness screamed silently from behind his eyes. He was a ghost, haunting his own past, a digital echo bouncing around the decaying architecture of his own hippocampus. The terrifying truth of Wilder Penfield's experiments was finally clear. If a memory is perfectly simulated, it is indistinguishable from reality. Panic gave way to a cold, clinical detachment as Kai began to analyze the parameters of his neurological prison. If he was currently experiencing a memory of October 14th, that meant the real present moment was happening somewhere else, at some point in the future. Where was his physical body right now? Was he lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines while Dr. Aris desperately tried to stop a massive rolling seizure? Or had the electrical storm in his temporal lobe finally burned out his brain entirely, leaving his consciousness trapped in a final, infinite loop of his last coherent day? The most horrifying possibility was that the real Kai was already dead, and this playback was just the residual electrical energy fading from his dying synapses. He realized that every single person he interacted with in this loop, Marcus, the barista, the professor, were just neurological constructs, highly detailed NPCs rendered by his own memory. They didn't have consciousness. They were just playing their assigned roles in the simulation his broken brain was forcing him to watch. He was entirely alone in a crowded room, surrounded by the ghosts of people he used to know, trapped in a moment that had already passed. He walked out of the coffee shop and sat on a bench in the campus quad, watching the leaves fall from the trees in exactly the same pattern they had fallen weeks ago. He knew that in exactly 3 minutes, a stray dog would run across the grass, followed by a student dropping a stack of papers. He didn't bother pulling out his phone to record a voice memo this time. There was no point in predicting a future that was actually the past. He simply sat and watched the simulation play out, a prisoner of his own perfect recall, waiting for the loop to end or the tape to finally run out. The human brain is a miraculous machine, capable of building entire universes out of electrical impulses and chemical reactions. But when the machine breaks, it doesn't just stop working. It turns those universes into cages, locking you inside a reality made entirely of your own echoes. Kai closed his eyes, listening to the familiar sounds of the campus, wondering if he would ever wake up, or if he was destined to live this Tuesday forever. I am Think Glent. Keep thinking.